Alright, here we go again. I just ran across another $1 million article on the homepage of a major news site. It is titled The Stark Reality of What a $1.5 million Retirement Looks Like in 2026. I mean, with a title like that, I am in before even reading the article, I am looking at the title thinking, a stark reality. There is no way this is going to hold up. And to be fair, that is not the most unbiased way to go into reading an article, but after reading it, it really does not hold up. This one is poorly framed and poorly executed. And yes, it falls right into that category of saying, hey, if you have $1.5 million saved for retirement, it is probably not enough. Hey guys, what is up? I am DD05 and welcome back to the channel. Here's the part that really caught my attention. They say if you take a 4% withdrawal from a $1.5 million portfolio, that gives you $60,000 a year. A conservative assumption, but so far so good. But then they hit you with this. After federal taxes, you are only left with $46,800. And that was the exact moment where I was like, we need to pause and we need to walk through this. Let us tackle the tax math first because this is the most glaring error in the entire article. Yes, if you have $1.5 million sitting in a traditional 401k or a traditional IRA, any withdrawals you make are taxed as ordinary income. So that part is correct. And yes, if you look at the 2026 tax brackets, an income of $60,000 could technically push you into the 22% bracket. But here is where the article falls apart. It assumes that you pay 22% on every single dollar of that $60,000. It leads to a tax bill of $13,200 and leaves you with an income of $46,800. That is not how our tax system works. We have a progressive tax system, which means your first dollars are taxed at lower rates. Only the top portion reaches higher brackets. And on top of that, we have deductions that we have to consider. And in retirement, those deductions get a lot bigger. At age 65 and older, there are now 3 layers of deductions as of 2026. First, we have the base standard deduction for single filers. It is $16,100. For those married and filing jointly, it is $32,200. Then we have the age-based add-on for those 65 and older. For those who are single, it is $2,050. For those married and filing jointly, it is $1,650 per person. And then we have the new OBA senior bonus deduction. For those who are single or married, it is $6,000 per person, assuming each individual is 65 or older. But if we add all of these deductions together for those who are single, they qualify for $24,150 total in deductions. And for those who are married, it is $47,500. So let us take a moment and actually run the numbers on this income, on current tax brackets, and factoring in the deductions. For a single filer age 65 or older, if they have ordinary income of $60,000, they would end up with net income after taxes of about $56,000. If we look at those who are married and filing jointly, both 65 and older with an income of $60,000, after considering taxes and deductions, their net income would be just under $59,000. Keep in mind that this new $6,000 deduction for seniors is separate from the standard deduction. So, while the article says that a $60,000 income becomes $46,800, in reality, it would be closer to $56,000 or $59,000 depending on your filing status. That is a $9,000 to $12,000 difference right off the bat. And this truly matters. Yes, we are looking at income from a traditional account. So yes, we do have to factor in taxes, but there is a massive difference between what people are being told they will keep and what they will actually be able to keep. And this is before factoring anything like Social Security, income strategy, and tax planning. So right out of the gate, this article is a little wobbly. Now, could taxes be higher than what we just showed? Absolutely. But for that to happen, we need to have other income sources. And this is something this article completely ignores. If you start to add in Social Security, perhaps a pension or an annuity or even part-time work, yes, these other income streams will stack right on top, and this can absolutely push you into higher tax brackets. But this is the important piece to focus on. If your taxes are going up, so too is your income. Now, let us add in Social Security and look at a single household. We will assume this individual has $2,000 a month in Social Security benefits. That is $24,000 a year. They have their traditional IRA withdrawal of $60,000. Now their total income is $84,000 pre-tax. Now, this is where things get a little bit more complex. Social Security is not taxed the exact same way as other income. It is governed by something called provisional income, and this determines how much of your Social Security benefit is subject to tax. In simple terms, you do not automatically pay tax on all of it. Only a portion becomes taxable based on your total income. So in this case, with this individual household, a portion of the Social Security does become taxable. And because the total income is now over $75,000, we do start to lose a little bit of that OBA senior deduction because of the phase-out range. So yes, this does make the tax situation a little bit more complex, but does that suddenly mean it turns into a high tax situation? Absolutely not. So looking at our single filer who is 65 or older with an $84,000 income, Their after-tax income would be closer to $77,000. Their effective tax rate is about 8.5%. So what this actually shows is that even after adding Social Security, triggering taxation on part of those benefits, and losing a portion of that new senior deduction, we are still paying an effective tax rate of less than 10%. Now, let us take this one step further. What if we are not looking at a single retiree, and instead we are looking at a dual income household? Let us assume both spouses claim Social Security at full retirement age. Their benefit is $2,000 per month each, so the total household benefit is $48,000 a year. And again, we are making a withdrawal of $60,000 from that traditional account. Now we have an income of $108,000. Importantly, this household does not hit the phase-out range for the new OBA senior deduction, so they get to keep their full deduction in this situation, but they are in a situation where 85% of their Social Security benefits do become taxable. So let us look at their taxes. For this household married and filing jointly, their total federal tax bill would be just under $6,000, giving them an effective tax rate of about 5.4%. Let that sink in for a moment. This couple has over $100,000 in income, and their tax bill is just under $6,000. That is a lot better than what this article says. This is really the opposite of what this article says. This article said that if your income was only $60,000, you would only keep a little over $46,000. But here we have a married couple who has nearly double that income and is still paying a lesser amount in taxes. And the reality is most retirees do not just have one account or one income source. They generally have Social Security, maybe they have a pension, maybe they have an annuity, maybe they have some part-time income, and maybe they have some money sitting in a brokerage account or in a Roth account. So we have a little bit of a more complex picture. All of these different income streams would stack and ultimately increase your income. But it is also important to consider that many of these income streams are taxed in more favorable ways. For example, money sitting in a brokerage account might be subject to long-term capital gains. If we have money sitting in a Roth account, none of those withdrawals are subject to taxes when money comes out. So what we are actually saying here is that households that would have $1.5 million saved up in a traditional 401k or traditional IRA are likely to have more income than what this article suggests and still have a more tax-efficient environment. Now, let us talk about withdrawal rates, because this is where the article subtly shifts the narrative. They suggest that a safe withdrawal rate would be in the range of 3.5 to 4% when looking at a 30-year retirement. Now, to be fair, that is not unreasonable. It is very much in line with traditional retirement planning. But the article goes further. They suggest that you should perhaps consider some part-time work to reduce your reliance on your portfolio in an attempt to drive your withdrawal rate down to perhaps 3%. Now, to be clear, I love the idea of a phased retirement. I love the idea of part-time work early on in retirement if you want to. If this brings you meaning and if it brings you structure, I say go for it, because bringing in another income stream reduces the reliance on your portfolio and yes, can make for a stronger retirement. So I would say a yes to checking a lot of these boxes. But forcing a 3% withdrawal rate, this is where it becomes highly questionable. There is no data saying that it is absolutely necessary to go down to a 3% withdrawal rate for a 30-year retirement. Could you do it? Absolutely. Would it be safe? Extremely. Is it necessary? Well, the data does not support it. If we use forward-looking research, something like Monte Carlo simulations, which tend to be a little bit more conservative, and look at a 30-year retirement time, Horizon Morningstar suggests a safe withdrawal rate of about 3.7 to 3.9%. And keep in mind, this is a rigid inflation-adjusted withdrawal. There is no flexibility whatsoever. But what if we were to look at historical data on safe withdrawal rates? Now, you are closer to 4.5 or 4.7% under modern-day assumptions. And if you introduce flexibility, which this article itself recommends, perhaps skipping inflation raises, adjusting your withdrawal down in poor-performing markets, or being flexible with your withdrawal over time. Even forward-looking Monte Carlo simulations suggest that you could use a safe withdrawal rate of 5% plus. So, what that means on a $1.5 million portfolio, if we are willing to bump our withdrawal up to 5%, we could be taking $75,000 a year. That is a $15,000 difference in annual income. And it is really important to get clear on what you think a realistic safe withdrawal rate is for your situation, because this will ultimately determine the size portfolio you think you need to fund your retirement. And more often than not, you are unlikely to use one single static inflation-adjusted withdrawal rate for an entire 30-year period. Life just does not seem to work like that. Spending just does not stay perfectly flat more often than not. And what the data overwhelmingly shows is that many people tend to reduce their spending in retirement, and this tends to reduce your reliance on your portfolio. And if this is your situation, this is going to have a way of building in an added layer of safety to your plan. Let us take this one step further. Because if we really want to test if a $1.5 million portfolio works, let us add some more pressure. Most financial planners assume a 30-year retirement. If you retire at a traditional retirement age, let us say you retire at the age of 65. They might project a 30-year retirement, so getting you to the age of 95. And to be fair, this is a great way to plan because you never want to run out of money in retirement, and it is very important to protect against longevity risk. But if we look at the data and we ask who is most likely to have a 30-year retirement time horizon, we might see that it is not those who are retiring at a traditional retirement age. It is generally someone retiring earlier because based on Social Security life expectancy data, men in their early 50s often live into their early 80s. Women in their mid to late 50s often live to their mid to late 80s. So now let's build a more stressful scenario. Let us assume a retirement age of 55, a portfolio of $1.5 million, all in a traditional account. Our retiree has access to these funds early via the rule of 55, which I do have a full video on and I can link down below if you are interested. They have no other income until Social Security, which they will start at the age of 62, and their benefit will be $1,400 a month or $16,800 per year. Now we are looking at a 30-year retirement timeline. Let's consider a simple bucket approach. Bucket number 1 will cover age 55 through 62. These are your bridge years. There is no Social Security here. The portfolio must cover 100% of your spending. The time horizon is 7 years. Then we have bucket 2 for age 62 and beyond. Social Security will now turn on, and that will give us $16,800 per year where the portfolio will come in and cover the remaining gap. So how much can this individual safely spend? Well, let us use a flexible spending strategy, not a rigid 4%. A $1.5 million portfolio could reasonably support 4.5 to 5% as a flexible withdrawal rate. That is going to give an income of about $67,500 to $75,000 a year. So for phase 1, ages 55 to 62, let us use a withdrawal rate that is right in the middle here. We will use 4.7%. This is going to give them an annual income just over $70,000 a year. Now, we are using a conservative draw during this bridge phase. Could we potentially draw more and have it still be considered safe? Absolutely. But for this situation, I want to make this look as conservative as possible and see what our income could realistically look like in a conservative situation. Phase 2, age 62 and beyond. Now, Social Security kicks in and our portfolio only needs to cover $53,200 as the gap. Now, look at what happened with our withdrawal rate once we hit age 62. It dropped significantly. Now, our withdrawal rate is in the ballpark of about 3.5%. This introduces a great margin of safety for our portfolio and stacks odds in our favor for longevity. Now, it is worth mentioning that this withdrawal rate assumes that our portfolio has maintained its same value, and that is certainly not a guarantee. It often is the case when it comes to applying safe withdrawal rates, but it is certainly not a guarantee. So we have our highest withdrawal pressure early on in the retirement, but once Social Security turns on, that risk meaningfully drops. So even in a more stressful scenario, an early retirement at the age of 55, no income other than the portfolio for 7 straight years, and modest Social Security. This portfolio can still support $65,000 to perhaps even $75,000 a year in annual income. So if we are being generous, this article is clumsy at best. Here's why. Number 1, the tax math is wrong, or at least very misleading. It assumes a flat tax on all income, and that is not how progressive brackets work. It ignores all eligible deductions for seniors, and these two factors dramatically increase how much of your income you are going to get to keep. Number 2, it ignores Social Security, and this is a huge miss. Most retirees will have Social Security, which changes the income picture. It is unlikely that a retiree in their 60s and beyond is going to be 100% reliant on their portfolio. Number 3, the part-time work framing is off. Part-time work can absolutely be helpful. I love this idea in many ways. But to suggest that you need to supplement your retirement with part-time work in an effort to reduce your withdrawal rate to 3% for a 30-year retirement just is not supported by the data. And number 4, it frames $1.5 million as fragile. It presents $1.5 million as if it produces a surprisingly small income relative to a lifetime of savings, when in reality, with proper context, it can support a much stronger and more flexible retirement than implied. So if you have $1.5 million in a traditional account, it is not out of the realm of possibility to think that you could support an income from the portfolio in the ballpark of $70,000 or $80,000 a year. And then once you add in other income sources, whether that is Social Security, a pension, annuity, a part-time income, we could easily have a household that is living on $100,000 a year in income. I really struggle with articles like this because they keep pushing the idea that $1 million is not enough. $1.5 million is not enough. $2 million still is not enough. And if you look at all of these types of articles, they really are using fear-based framing. I do not think we need more fear-based articles. I think we need more conversations that are rooted in data, because that is where I think we get the most help. Now, I would add my 2 cents. If you do have $1.5 million sitting in a traditional account as you are heading into retirement, something you might want to consider would be Roth conversions, because here is the reality: that portfolio will likely continue to grow. And once you hit RMD age, you lose control over how much you have to withdraw. Those forced withdrawals can push you into higher tax brackets later, and doing strategic and thoughtful Roth conversions over time can help to smooth out your lifetime tax bill and reduce your RMD pressure later on in life. So, if you have $1.5 million sitting in a traditional account, this is not a problem. This is an opportunity that you get to solve for. I used to think that the goal was just to hit the number and stop, but the math shows that the real work begins when you start optimizing how you spend it. A lot of people focus on the fear of running out, but very few focus on the math of holding on. I remember when I first saved my first $10,000 and thought it was a fortune. Then I realized that without a plan, even $1 million is just a number. But with a plan, $1.5 million is a powerful engine. We are the generation that is going to redefine what it means to be comfortable. We do not need the private jets or the constant consumption. We need the peace of mind that comes from knowing our numbers are solid. I spent years tracking every dollar and making sure I understood the difference between a tax bracket and an effective tax rate. It is not exciting stuff. It is actually quite boring, but these boring truths are what keep you from making panicked decisions when the headlines get loud. I want you to think about your portfolio not as a stash of cash, but as a series of future cash flows. When you see it that way, the $1.5 million starts to look very different. It looks like freedom. It looks like the ability to say no to things you do not want to do, and that is the whole point of saving in the first place. So, what are your thoughts on these types of articles? Leave them in a comment down below. I post new videos every single week. If you got anything at all out of this one, please give it a like. If you are new here, please consider subscribing, or if you know of someone who might get something out of this type of content, please consider sharing. I will see you soon. Take care of your health and your spreadsheets. Goodbye.